Hey guys, this video is dedicated to Crazy Mofo, Crazy Mofo, I believe. He had a couple comments. First comment was that he had 80% in one investment, and that's risky. Um, well, he has 80% of his U.S. holdings. The guy's originally from India. So, I'm sure he has holdings in Europe, he has holdings in China, he has holdings in India. I'm sure he has holdings all over the world. So, and even Warren Buffett has said, the only reason Warren Buffett does not go 100% into one stock usually is because the people that are giving him money are basically family and friends. At least when he started out, they were people that gave him all the money they have in the world, and they are trusting him with basically their generational wealth. And when you think of it like that, that's a big responsibility to hold the future of tens of millions of families in America in your hands, and to not do anything quote quote risky with their entire life savings. Buffett himself has been pretty close to all in several times. When he started his fund, he basically got 50. He started with $100 and of his money, and he was trading on his own $100,000 of his money. But when he opened his fund, he started with $100,000 of other people's money and $100 of his money, and basically he was getting 50% of all the profits, but he was also taking on basically unlimited risk as well. But the things he was investing in were foolproof, so ended up working out for him. But I mean, if his advice, is to, I've heard him say, when you graduate high school, you have a punch card, and you only get 20 financial decisions in your whole life. And you're not even going to use them all. You're going to think very long and hard before each punch. But there's been many times that Buffett has been heavily concentrated in one stock, one security. I mean, all his net worth is in Berkshire Hathaway. He only has one stock. But Berkshire Hathaway is diversified, though. But the reason he diversifies is not because he's scared of, the business. What usually happens is, he started buying Apple maybe at $30 and owned 5% of Apple or whatever it was, and then next thing you know, it goes to $150 or $200, and he can no longer. I can guarantee you, Buffett is not buying Apple at 200. He might have been buying it at 30, maybe even at 50, but he's not going to be buying it at 200. I can guarantee you that. Um, but by the time word gets out, with Perbury, for example, um, people in the financial industry have to release their holdings, but they don't tell us like a day after they purchase it. It might be months later. When Buffett was buying Coca-Cola, he was buying a third of the volume for months, 6 months or so. And I guess eventually, the word got out, and well, with Coca-Cola, there's basically laws when you own more than 10% of a company. So there's extra laws there's extra loopholes and hoops you got to jump through. So ideally, at least in Buffett's mind, he either owned the whole company or 10% or less. Bank of America, I think, is an exception. Berkshire Hathaway owns 20% of American Express as well, but you don't see them continue buying American Express, and you don't see them continuing to buy Kraft Heinz, which they own, I think, 20 or 25%. They might be reinvesting the dividends and buying more shares that way, but they're not putting up new capital, in my opinion, just because the price is so high. I don't know what the price of American Express was when they were buying it, but I'm sure it was a lot less than what it is now. And that's another thing that people have to consider is, Berkshire Hathaway, for example, has a lot of cash. I think at one point, a couple of years ago, they had almost $300 billion in cash, which was probably the most cash any company in the world has on hand, except maybe Apple was the other example. But they have basically fully owned companies and they have partially owned companies. And the partially owned companies, the price, of Bank of America might be $30 today, but he was buying it at 10 or whatever, So you got to take that into consideration. But no, his advice for the average investor that don't think they can beat the market is just buy the index, just buy the S&P 500 index. But anyone that has any financial knowledge and has any brain cells in their head will decide to beat the market, because why would you settle on a 5% return or a 7% return when you could get a 10% or a 20% or a 50% return annually, and without having to put up any more money? Your retirement future or whatever could be sped up 20, 30, 40 years. There's people today that are retiring in their 30s, even in their 20s. And basically, with investing, either, you can get 3% return on your money for 40 years or 60 years, live to be a big, long old age, and just be slow and steady, just constantly investing your whole life. Or if you want to be a little more aggressive, a little more quote, quote, risky, you can go outside the mainstream, and instead of just buying the S&P 500 index, you actually pick individual stocks, and and that way you can actually beat the market. And I think I've said before that, Buffett would say the average person should maybe pick 4 or 5 good companies. And if I was being very conservative in a portfolio structure, I would probably start out with Berkshire Hathaway. I would probably have the S&P 500 index, and then I would pick probably 3 other companies that are very good companies, maybe like a Exxon Mobil. And I never really liked the big tech stuff, but I think Google and Microsoft are still going to be around 100 years from now, and I think they're going to, Microsoft, especially with their gaming, gaming stuff. Google, of course, with YouTube, and to me, knowledge is power, and Google can basically is the doorway to that knowledge, and if they can at some point in the future monetize that knowledge, even better than they're doing currently, the sky's the limit. So, as an example, like I said, this is not financial advice, it's just my opinion. If I was going very conservative, I would pick something like this, something like that. I forgot what Exxon's ticker is. I want to say it's XOM, but I might be mistaken on that. And then I forgot Microsoft's ticker. Soft and Google. Now, of course, Exxon's gone up a ton. Berkshire, I would have loved to have around 170. Of course, it's like 3 something. I would have rather you bought Berkshire a couple years ago when it was 176 or something. And Exxon, I would rather you have bought it when everyone hated oil. But these two had a hit, the last year or so. But if you're dollar cost averaging, just putting $50 a week, $100 a week, $200 a week, whatever it is, you're dollar cost averaging. The price today really doesn't matter that much in the long scheme of things if you plan on holding these companies for 50, 60, 70, 80 years. And hopefully after you die, you can pass these assets on to your children or your grandchildren, brothers and sisters. So in that case, maybe you never sell. And I think 10 is probably too many for the average person to handle. But maybe, one would be VOO. If you take Buffett's advice, you got 90% in that, and then you got short-term T-bills, which is treasury bills, and we're usually talking a few days to basically 3 months usually. 10%. They used to tell you to do like something like a 60/40 stock to bond. I don't think that's really a good idea anymore. As you can see, the bond market has basically got killed recently, and the stocks this past year went down 30%. So basically, you got killed in both areas. What you decide to do is really up to you. I mean, if I'm 100% sure, or nearly 100% sure, going 100% into one stock is perfectly okay. Now, the only reason you wouldn't do this is basically diversification is it's kind of like a fail-safe against ignorance. So instead of 100% and this one stock, maybe you'll spread it around to 5 stocks. And any more than 5 companies, I think, is probably too much for the average investor to keep up with, as far as reading the annual reports, going to the annual meetings, reading the day-to-day news, etc. But so I mean, I agree with Buffett. Most people are not stock pickers. So in that case, putting 100% into the S&P 500 index, it could be possible. Or the total index, which is basically every single company on the U.S. stock market. As I've said before, wealth in this country was not built by those who diversified. It was built on those who concentrated. Buffett owns one stock. He owns Berkshire Hathaway. That's the only stock he owns. One company, Berkshire Hathaway. Now, within Berkshire Hathaway, they own different companies, but as far as Buffett himself, who was at one time the richest man in the world, owns one stock. I've mentioned this before. Zuckerberg, the Facebook guy, guess where he has most of his money? In Facebook. Bill Gates also used to be one of the richest guys and the richest man in the world, who got his fortune from Microsoft, but most of his wealth is in Berkshire Hathaway, because he thinks that's a safer investment than Microsoft. Jeff Bezos, he's got all his money in Amazon. Elon Musk, he's got all his money in Tesla. On and on and on. The Waltons, they had all their money in Walmart. The Fords had all their money in Ford. A lot of the other rich old money wealth in this country that was built on oil, they owned oil. But as you gain wealth, then people start to diversify some. because at that point they're no longer trying to grow their wealth. Really, they're just trying to not lose it. So if you, so that's when they start diversifying, um, and you could put some in gold, you could put some in silver, you could put some in Bitcoin. You could put some in real estate. And bonds, there's different bonds you could have. There's short term, there's mid term, there's long term. You could have bonds that are AAA. You could have bonds that are AA. You could have bonds that are maybe your local municipal government. It could be a specific company, maybe Apple's debt or ExxonMobil's debt. There's all kinds of bonds. I mean, I personally don't like bonds that much because the reason is, let's say you got a bond and it's going to pay you 5%. Well, you're never going to get more than that. That's what you're going to get, 5%. But with, I think it's the ExxonMobil. Let's say ExxonMobil is paying like a 5.7% dividend. Well, you get what most people don't realize is you're not including the money that's reinvested into the business, or the money that is used for R&D, or used to pay down the debt, or maybe some used to do share buybacks. So the potential return for somebody that owns a company that's paying say 5.7%. I don't even know what a couple, might have been a year ago now, but they were paying 7-8%, and then the stock went up, so the dividend yield went down. But the company is still over the long haul likely to go up. I mean, they might have some ups and downs, and maybe a big down, but here and there. But the long-term thing should be upward. So with the bond, all you can get is 5%. But with a stock, you're getting the 5%, plus you're also getting the capital appreciation. So, let's say the stock was 50, and then, 20 years down the road, the stock is 250. So not only did you get this dividend, and you all around, all the time you're buying more and more shares just from the dividend alone, and not only that, but then your money went up 5x. You can invest in oil. You can invest in gas, natural gas. You can invest in rice. You can invest in wood. You can invest in, peanuts. Um, you can invest um, in Europe. You can invest in China. You can invest in India. You can invest in different currencies. Um, you can invest in, mature markets, which would be like the U.S. and Europe, and you can invest in developing markets, like whether it be like South America, Africa, India, that kind of thing. Um, so with me, like I prefer the small cap companies, and the reason for that is I've talked about this on a couple of videos. Is basically the big hedge funds cannot buy any stock that is under $10 normally. At least let's say you got a pension fund. Well, the pension fund that maybe has $500 billion under assets, they're not going to be messing with a stock that is worth 30. You could buy the whole company for $30 million. It's not worth their time. And I think by law, their own internal laws, that they can't do it, and not only that, but the big hedge funds do not want to pay an analyst to analyze these little teeny tiny companies. So their world of stocks and securities are probably 50 billion and up, and maybe 100 billion and up, maybe 200 billion and up. I don't. It depends on the size of the asset manager, but so that gives the mom and pop investor the advantage, because while the big money can't invest in these companies because they're too big, it's not worth their time. Like Buffett said, it wouldn't even move the needle. If he's getting, let's say, $300 million every week from dividends, and you buy a company for $30 million, that's not even going to move the needle. That's not even worth their time. But I think of a good investor, they find a good business, a good company, maybe a goal for them, or if they have this is why I want to manage a small amount of money. Is I could, if I could buy maybe 1% of this company, maybe 2%. And find 10 great businesses, and that you own 1% in each business. And I think over the long term, you're going to do really well. And but like I said, buying is easy, selling is a lot harder, because you got to decide, hey, am I going to hold this for 15 years, 20 years? 2 years, and am I just going to take a 20% bump and get out, take a 50% bump and get out, double my money and sell half? Every time it goes up another 10%, sell a piece of it, and once you get to a certain percentage, just let the rest ride. there's all kinds of strategies to use. These first early years of me investing, I made a lot of mistakes. When I was started to invest, I was basically playing with all the money I had. And I didn't buy Sears at 12. I bought it shortly after that. I think it was 12 cent at Christmas. But I might have bought it at 25 and sold it 50 or something, and double my money, or maybe a little more. But from 12 to $1.50, that's a 10 bagger. Someone bought at 12 cents and sold at $1.50, they would have 10x their money. $1,000 turns into 10,000. 10,000 turns into 100,000. 100,000 turns into $1 million. And I've been very good at finding on my own, without any assistance or any copycat or any following somebody else. I found these 10 baggers by myself. The reason I liked Sears was, it was it was 100-year-old company, and the main value in Sears was the real estate. And they might have bought the land for $100 100 years ago, but today that land is worth $1 million, per store probably. And the parking lot's probably $1 million per store. And there was the whole market, the value of the whole company was like $20 million or something. Granted, they had a bunch of debt, but I thought it was worth a hell of a lot more than what it was selling for, and I really didn't think they were going to go bankrupt, just because they have had a lot of employees, and I don't think the U.S. government was going to let that many jobs just go. But they were definitely worth more. The story with DAC, it was trading basically for the scrap value of the metal on the ships. And these are big, huge tanker ships. They even dwarf some cruise ships. These are not small little vessels. Movie Pass, I can't remember. I think it went down to like 0.00000. It was, I had millions of shares, and every time it went up a hundredth of a penny, I was up $100. So if there was a 10-point spread in the day, that was $1,000. And you could pick off between the bid and the ask price, I'm saying the spread was 10, in between the low and the high of the day. And so, if you could, I guess it's called scalping. This was back when I was trying to day trade a little bit. But if there's a 10-point spread, if you buy near the bottom and sell near the top, and you own a bunch of shares, to say make $1,000, all you needed it to go up was 10 pennies, or 10 hundredths of a penny. Not even 10 pennies, but 10 like hundredths of a penny. But the second question the guy asked was what was my return, and this is why I'm trying to start my own fund, just so I can have a track record, have it, because no one's going to invest with you if you don't have any kind of record. Of course, people got to start somewhere, and Either they, trust you or they don't. As far as money goes, I'm an honest person, so um, but the average person doesn't know that. They don't know if I'm trustworthy or not. They may not want to hand over $1 million that somebody that doesn't have any kind of track record. But I must be doing okay because I'm not broke yet, and hopefully that will never happen. And usually, most people that are starting out, they go broke. When the brokerage houses, when you buy something off Robinhood or Webull or E-Trade or whatever, they think the average retail investor is a total idiot. So basically, everything that you do, they do the opposite. They basically bet that the average retail investor is going to be wrong most of the time. So they make their money betting against you. And in fact, there's a guy on TV named Jim Cramer who thinks he knows everything about everything. And somebody had made a ETF or a stock that is basically the opposite of whatever Jim Cramer says to do. And I think they actually made quite a bit of money doing the opposite of what the guy recommended. Because, as Buffett says, out of the total stock market of, I don't know how many U.S. companies there are, maybe there's 10,000, maybe there's more, maybe there's hundreds of thousands. I don't know when you include ETFs and everything else. But like I said, any one person, it's really hard to know more than, say, 5 businesses very well, and to follow them. And do you want people investing, in their 10th best idea, or there's a lot of people that have got rich on their best idea, their first idea, but there's not a lot of people that have got rich investing on their 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th best idea. So by keeping a concentrated portfolio, if you do well, you will definitely outperform the market. You actually get probably 30 to 50% return. 50% return on your money. But I really, to be honest with you, I really don't know what what my percentage is. I mean, my little screw around account, it says I'm up 30% or whatever, but some of that is not accurate. You got to take that with a grain of salt. And this past year, I took a loss. I was the market was down 30%. I was right on S&D. I had, I don't know, maybe $5,000 in it, and I had bought it. I basically would have at least doubled or maybe even tripled my money if I would have held on to it for a little while longer. But I had sold days before it had gone up. This was, I think it went to 4.5 or 5, close to 6, I think, at one point within the last year or so. I might be a little mistaken on that, but 2 years ago, I had invested 8,000 in this one company that I thought was worth 100,000, and that was a big risk, especially considering my bankroll. And unfortunately, I was wrong on that, so I had a total loss on that. But the good news is I was able to help use some of that to lower my tax bill, and I think you can spread it across a couple years. So even if you lose, even if you're wrong, if I'm going after 10 baggers, I only need to be right on 1 out of 10. I could be wrong with 90%. So if you're getting 10 times your money and you invest in 10 different businesses, and 9 of them go bankrupt and one goes up 10x, I mean, you still break even. If two do well, 3 do well, what I like to do is, some stocks I think I'm going to get maybe a 25% return. Some stocks I think maybe I'm going to get a 500% return. Some stocks I might think I'm getting 100% return. And this one I might be 100% sure. This one I might be 20% sure. This one I might be 50% sure. But as possible, I could be right on all three of these. It could be I'm just wrong on 1 out of 3. I plan on not losing any money, so hopefully I won't be wrong on 3 out of 3. But the problem with a value investor, dividend investor, whatever, is, and like I said, I want to distinguish myself from the other dividend investors who have no idea what the value of the business they're buying. They're just buying Johnson and Johnson because it's Johnson and Johnson. They don't know if it's cheap. They don't know if it's expensive. They don't know if it's a good price. They don't know if it's a high price. They don't know shit. But the name. And they're a lot of times they pay too much because they don't know what the hell they're buying. When you buy a house, you get you get a surveyor out there, you get code enforcement guy to make sure everything is up to code, make sure the house ain't gonna collapse on you. You got get an electrician in there. You can't be 100% sure that something ain't wrong with that house, because you can't actually go inside a lot of times. Sometimes you can only, before you buy a house, sometimes you can't go inside and the only thing you can tell is from the outside. But sometimes you're going to get gems and sometimes you're going to get lemons. And you just have to, based on your knowledge, and try to make the most intelligent decision that you can. But no, I would say 80% in one stock is not risky. It's not risky if you know it's not risky if you are 100% sure of a win. Wrong, right, doesn't matter. You're 100% sure that this stock is going to go up 100% or more. And you are so confident in that you are willing to put 80% of your portfolio into that belief. Like I said, this is not his total portfolio. This is just his U.S. portfolio. So I don't think it's 80% of all the Palbrary funds and access he has. I think it's just I mean, it's a significant portion. Don't get me wrong, but it's not 80% of everything he owns. But Buffett has been quoted as saying that if he was managing just his money, that he found several opportunities, 3 or 4 at least, maybe more, that he felt very confident putting 100% of his money into. I'm sure Coca-Cola would be right up there. I'm sure Geico would be up there. See's Candy, I'm sure, and a lot of other ones. So, again, a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush, and you got to ask yourself, how many birds how long to get the birds out of the bush, and how sure are you? So let's say this is a 10 bagger. Let's say you got a bird in the hand right here. You got one bird in the hand today. But you are wondering how many birds in this bush in the next 5 years. And if I think there's 10 birds in the bush, and I'm 100% sure, and I know that it's going to take a year and a half or less for this beautiful woman to go back to her family. She had done nothing wrong. But yeah, guys, this is everything there is to investing right here. How many birds are in the bush? This is a bush. How long to get the birds out of the bush? And how sure are we? Alright, so we think there's 10 birds in the bush. We think there's going to be, it's going to take us 5 years to get it out. And we're 100% sure. So if we're 100% sure, I don't mind putting 100% of your portfolio in there. But like I said, when you're managing other people's money, sometimes you are managing 100% of their every dollar that they've saved over the course of their entire life. Every penny or dollar their mom saved throughout the course of their life. So back to the question. The question the guy asked me was, what is my average return? And my answer is I really don't know. But this year, let's say my monthly dividend stocks were down 20%, and and I was getting probably 15% dividends, which really turns into 16% because it's every month. So really, um, I mean, instead of losing 30%, let's say 30%, and then I don't know, maybe I'm down 10 to 15% this year, whereas the market has been down, what, 30% plus. And the thing that makes this the last couple of years very weird is, a lot of people, they used to, like people in Great Britain, for example, instead of 60% stocks like the U.S. has and 40% bonds, the Europe and Great Britain is basically the opposite, where they have more bonds than stocks. So they might have 60% in bonds and 40% in stocks. So, and like I said, that portfolio is no longer safe. You can look at if you want to be a genius, Ray Dalio thinks he's a genius. He's got the all-weather portfolio. Go look at his portfolio. He's got currencies from all over the world. He's got different industries. He's got different commodities. But like I said, if you want to make a lot of money, you got to concentrate. You got to, and by concentrate, I mean concentrate 80%, 50%. The billionaire, that the guy who had $4 billion, the Indian guy who managed just his own money, when he started his portfolio, these two companies only made up 3% of his position. But he never sold, and eventually those two companies that he had picked turned into, I want to say it was 80. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. But basically, he started out with these two stocks that made up 3% of his portfolio. But over time, over the next 40 years, these two companies compounded at 30% annually, and eventually those two companies alone made up 70 to 80% of his portfolio. So, are you saying that's risky? If you got a great business, and one of the businesses they said was Indian jewelry maker. But yeah, it was an Indian guy who had $4 billion. when he passed away last week, 2 billion of that was in 2 stocks. And at one time, these 2 stocks made up 3% each of his total portfolio. And eventually ended up these 2 stocks being 70% of his portfolio. So, a dum-dum, might say, oh, well, you're 70% in these 2 stocks. You got to diversify. You need to pull some out of there and stick some in gold, and stick some in Bitcoin, and stick some in oil, and some in gas, and some in green energy, and some in this currency and some in that currency, and yeah, I mean, if you want to buy everything, you can just buy the total stock market index, and then if you want to buy all the bonds, you can buy a total bond index. If you just want to buy everything, and but then your returns are average, and we're trying to do better than average. We are tired of Americans working their whole lives, and at the end of their life, we're the richest country in the world, and at the end of their life, after working at the same job for 40 years, they only have $100,000 to retire on. That's pitiful, and ultimately it's your fault. It's our fault. It's the bank's fault. Because they're trying to keep everyone silent and not teach anybody how to invest, so they can rob you. Basically, that's what they're doing. Anytime you buy a house, you're basically buying the bank a free house first, and then eventually, after 30 years, then you finally pay your house off. They got student loans. We got a $1.7 trillion in the U.S. in student loan debt. We got $1 trillion in credit card debt. On and on and on and on. And the future for this country is not that bright right now. I mean, I think we are still the light shining on the hill. I think we are still the voice of freedom and democracy around the world. I still think we help around the world best we can, but we also need to help our veterans more, help our mental health more, help people find employment. They're looking for employment and working hard for employment. So back to the original question: is 80% in one stock risky? And my answer is no. And I've given you the reasons. If you're 100% sure that this stock is going to 10x or whatever, why not go 100%? So maybe he's 80% sure that's going to go up 10x, and then maybe the other one, I don't know, maybe he thinks it's going to go 30x. So maybe it's a 1 in 5 chance to go 30x. But like I said, he's the Parberry guy. Or I forgot how you pronounce his name, but anyway, it's 80% of his U.S. holdings. So it's not 80% of everything. It's 80% of his U.S. holdings. But I bought some without even really knowing anything about the company, just on the fact that he had put 80% of his U.S. holdings in there. Now, I didn't make a huge investment. I made a little rinky-dink, threw a couple $100 at it and see what happens. But the reason that sometimes it's hard to see what your return is using multiple platforms and taking $100 gain here, $100 gain there, and then maybe rebuying the stock after it falls. And I heard a story of a high-ranking guy near a CEO that basically had he put his daughter through college just by buying Sears. He would buy at 7 and sell at 9, or buy at 6 and sell at 9, or something like that. And he would just buy when it's low and sell when it's high. And that ended up working out for him. But I think the best way to create wealth and generational wealth in this country is to concentrate. Feel very strongly about what you're doing. But my goal, what I would like to see eventually, and I would love to see a 20 to 50% return. And if I can't get that, I would consider a fail. Buffett had a quote that if he's managing a million or a few million, he could guarantee a 50% annual return. Guaranteed. And I think it's a little harder today than it was in Buffett's time, because you got millions of people looking around the world at stuff. And back when Buffett started, he was probably the only one looking. No one else was looking. He tried to talk some sense into an insurance guy one time who I think the insurance company was compounding at 8% annually, and he would rather stick his money in a bank or something and get a 0.5% return or something, when you could have just put it in, bought the insurance company and got a 8% dividend yield, or whatever it was. But this is my goal eventually. But starting out, what I probably would recommend doing is just have cash flow. You want dividends and you want cash flow. And a lot of these companies are not say under. I wouldn't say a lot of these are not what I would call undervalued. Some of them might be fair value. Some of you might be paying a premium. But what it gives you is, a monthly income. Um, and then once you get that monthly income, then I will start buying the value stocks. And a lot of times the value stocks don't pay dividends. Sometimes you'll get lucky and like BAK, Petrobras, blah blah blah. A lot of these are not only are they cheap, not only are they undervalued, but they are also paying a significant dividend. Um, and the company that we just bought the other day was doing. They had bought back 30% of their shares outstanding, plus a dividend. So if a company buys back 30% of all their shares, that means without you having to invest another penny into that company, your ownership in that business just increased 30% overnight. Um, and for a new investor, I think seeing your money work for you, seeing the dividends work, and start seeing that compounding, that will um, motivate you to invest more. And maybe you cut out maybe you cut out eating out every meal. Maybe you cut out going out to the movies. Maybe you cut out sodas. Um, and then you use this extra money here to buy more because you love seeing that cash flow grow every month. But my goal these last year or so was to basically work on dividends, work on cash flow. Now I do have some stocks that I think are undervalued. But some of them might take 2 to 5 years before anything happens. And a lot of these value stocks, it might look something like this, where 10 years ago it was $100, and now we're stuck at $1, and here it was maybe $1.25, and it's just it's on this down slope. But if you say buy right here, you still might lose 20% right here, but then over the long run, over the next couple years, if you're right, hopefully the stock will, if you think it's actually worth 100, hopefully in 2 to 5 years is going to reach there. Like S&D, for example, it's what I don't know, $1.75 or something, and the book value is 6. Jim Rogers bought at 15. Joel Greenblatt. And I might be thinking of a different company here, but But let's just use this as an example. I know for a fact the book value is 6. The stock price is $1.75. Some point in the future, I don't know if it's today, I don't know if it's tomorrow, I don't know if it's next week, but sometime in the next 2 to 5 years, this stock, in theory, if it's a legitimate company, if it's a company that's making money, should go closer to that $6 mark. And even last year, I think it was around 450 or something. And like I said, I would have doubled, tripled my money easily. And that $5,000 was a significant portion of my portfolio at the time. But sometime in the future, I think it's going to go to 6. It might even go to 10 to 15. So, maybe I sell 50% at 6. Maybe if it goes to 10, maybe I'll sell 25%, and then let the rest ride. And if I sell 50% at 6, I mean I got all my money back plus a profit. Here I'm increasing my profit, and I still got 25% left over to hold for eternity. But one of the companies, I can't remember which one it was, it might have been BAK, was these super investors had bought it when it was 15, I want to say. So if they thought this company was, and I might be again thinking of the wrong company, but it doesn't really matter, because my point is that if you have any super investors that bought it at 15, and the stock is say 5, let's say the stock's $5 right today, and if these guys bought it at 15 5 years ago, you would think that it would be worth a lot more than 15. Because if they're buying it at 15, they got to think it's worth like 30 or more. But basically, I got carried away on a tangent. There was this guy who had made a couple comments, and the first one was, what is my average return, and then the second comment was 80%, and that one company was risky. And yeah, I think for the average person, if they know nothing, putting 80% in your U.S. holdings in one security could be risky. But for an expert that does this for their living, I don't even 100%. Now, like I said, you got to remember you're managing other people's money. So even if you're 100% sure, you still a lot of times should maybe invest in something else just in case you're wrong. And I think like I said, four to five big companies. Um, 4 to 5 good businesses is really all you need. Um, but what I do a lot of times is the companies I invest in, they're not necessarily good companies. They're just undervalued companies. So in my case, I need uh, maybe 10 to 50, somewhere in there. Um, and it's hard for, like I said, for an average person to keep track of more than more than a couple of companies. Um, if you believe what Buffett said, he says out of the whole stock market, out of let's say there's 10,000 companies, 70 or 80% of them they're in the too hard pile. You can't figure them out. You don't know what they're worth, or you just don't understand the business. Um, Buffett with internet stocks, like he doesn't own a computer. He just doesn't get it. I think he did finally own a computer just to play bridge, but so you have to, ideally, a circle um, of competence. You have to, one, try to um, understand um, understand the business, and most people, probably 80% or 70% of all the stocks in the stock market you can't understand. They're off limits. Um, they're too hard to too hard to handle, too hard to evaluate. Um, but if you're Sam Walton, who was the um, I want to say he was the one who started Walmart. Would you say it was risky to put 100% into Walmart? Or 100% into Facebook, Tesla, Amazon, Microsoft, Oracle, Berkshire Berkshire Hathaway, um, So I mean, your own person, has to decide your risk tolerance. Like me, I could be down 50%, and it wouldn't bother me at all because I know what I'm buying. Um, like that S&D company. If it's um, $1.75, and I know what the book value is 6, and it drops down to 125. Am I gonna sell? Hell no! I'm gonna buy some more. And then let's say it goes down to 75 cents. What am I going to do then? Well, then I'm going to buy some more. Now let's say that they make fracking illegal, and there's no more fracking, and then I might stop. I've made an initial position. I've doubled down once. Maybe it goes to 50 cent. Maybe I double down again. Um, but after that, I'm either selling or just holding. Because I gotta realize that here I might just be wrong. I might have been wrong here. I might have been wrong here. I might have been wrong here. So once you're at this point, you got to ask yourself, and a lot of times, as soon as you buy stock, it will go down 20%. Um, Especially the smaller caps, they move very quickly. Just one news article could move it up 20% or more. But like I said, on the flip side, if I think it's worth 6, maybe I'll sell 50% at 6. If it goes to 10, maybe I'll sell 25. Um, and then let the rest ride. 25%. I mean, I made profit here, I made profit there. This right here, I got my money back, and this is profit. So this really wasn't profit. This was just my money. Well, actually, this was profit if you buy at 125. Let's say you bought it at 3. Let's say you buy at 3 and it goes to 6. Well, you sell 50%, you get your money back. Then it goes to 10, and then you start making profit. Um, but like I said, buying is a lot easier than selling because selling, uh, if you really think it's a 10 bagger, 20 bagger, 30 bagger, 50 bagger, maybe you decide to not sell any, and you just let it ride and hold it for 40 years, 30 years, see what happens. Um, but I told you about my experience with DAC. Basically DAC went up 30x. I basically bought at 350 and I sold at $7, $8, $9, and it ended up going up to 100. So then after that, I kind of thought the market was going to crash, and and I was all into 30-year treasuries, and that was a mistake. Because I didn't realize they were going to increase the money supply 40%. They printed so much money that the money supply rose 40%. And basically what this did was it increased, stocks. It increased the value of real estate. And we had 10% plus inflation. Now they probably won't admit to it being 10%. It's probably even higher than that. Probably maybe even 15 or 20% inflation. So I really have not done that well. I really don't know what my return. I really don't know the answer to that. But that's what I'm saying. That's why I want to start a track record and start a fund and prove to you guys that I can beat the market. I can get a better than average return, above average return. But what I will say is, let's say the best fund managers in the world, let's say there's a 5-year period, year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You're going to be down here at the bottom decile probably 2, 3, maybe even 4 years out of 5. And then on like year 5, maybe you get a 500% return or something. So let's say these these years it just went flat. You didn't gain nothing, you didn't lose nothing. But then in year 5, maybe that stock, that S&D stock, year 1 maybe it's maybe 150 when I bought it. Maybe it goes to 175, and maybe it drops down to 125, and then year 4 maybe it stays at 125, and then maybe it goes to $7 in year 5 or something. So when we talk about returns, you gotta look at when I start my fund, and hopefully I will very soon here. I want investors to invest with me at least for 5 years, and if they don't like me after 5 years, they can find someone else. But people have to realize this. The best investors, they're going to be at the bottom here, and this ain't just like middle of the pack. This is like dead last, dead last, dead last, dead last. and then you get that one um, company that does well, and it's just patience. I don't know when it's going to happen, but like I said, if the book value is 6 and the stock is at $1.50, some point into the future, if everything goes well, the price should go close to 6 or higher. And maybe it never reaches 6. Maybe it just goes to 4.75 again or something, or maybe 5. But all I know is the company is worth more than $1.50. A lot more. And all I know is the book value is 6. But we know that because of the investments they've made, their capacity has gone up at least 40%. So if their ability to make money has gone up 40%, and they're already $6, $10 is not a far off estimate. So the way I would like to be graded is over a 5-year period, and like I said, the first couple years, ideally you're gonna want some cash flow. So you're gonna want some dividends. And a lot of the value stocks, not always. We had BAK, we got Petrobras, which both of these I think are undervalued, and they pay dividends. But they don't pay monthly dividends. And then you got like the QYLD, the RYLD, all the monthly payers, can help build your cash flow, and then as you get your dividends, then you buy the undervalued stocks. And week after week, month after month, year after year, you're just buying more and more and more and more and more and more. And sooner or later, you will have quite a substantial position in what you believe to be undervalued securities. And contrary to the hypothesis of that the market is 100% accurate, that whatever the price is on any given day is the actual true value, is 100% bullshit. And anytime you have volatility, you have violent fluctuations and price. When those bank stocks went down 70% in a day, I think three of them went bankrupt. But if you knew exactly what the value of this bank was, and their price fell 70% in one day, you could be buying up shares here, and then it might take 2 years, 3 years, whatever, but eventually the price should go higher than what it even was over here. But if you have no idea what the value of this company is, when the price drops 70% in a single day, you're not going to have the confidence to buy this company. Because you have no idea what the hell it's worth. You don't know if it's a good price. You don't know if it's a bad price. You don't know, is there a 50% chance they're going to default? Is there a 100% chance this bank's going bankrupt? But I've only been investing a couple years, guys, and I've already found at least 3 that were 10 baggers. And I forgot that. I want to say this is HMNY or something. It doesn't even exist now. It went bankrupt, but I made a decent amount of money on it. And there might have been others. I just can't remember them off the top of my head. But if I'm able to find 3 10 baggers in a couple years, you don't need to be right on everything. All you need to be right is a couple times in a lifetime. You start with a 1,000 and you 10x it, now you got 10,000. 10x it again, now you got 100,000. 10x it again, now you got 1,000,000. So really, now this is going to be hard to find 4 10xers in a row probably, but in theory, you only need 4 right decisions. Start with $1,000, 3 right decisions, four right decisions, and you got 1,000,000. Or you could start with, say, 1,000. You start with 1,000, and maybe you find 100x. Maybe you find the next Google. Maybe you find the next Walmart. Maybe you find the next Microsoft. So, I mean, you could turn 1,000 into with one right decision. Or you could get 1,000x who knows? I mean, the amount of money you can make in the stock market is basically unlimited. Um, But yeah, I wish I could show my returns, and I have like stuff over several different platforms, so um, it's kind of hard to say. But like I said, that's why I want to start a fund. My track record will be there for all to see. Um, like when I was messing around with like a Webull account, for example, I only put $1 in, and then I referred some friends, and then I made some right decisions, and some of my money went up, and next thing I know, a dollar, my dollar investment was, maybe worth $500. So, but most of the stocks I got were free from basically referring friends to join. Um, Same thing with Robinhood. So I mean, I could say, I got a 500% return, but that's really just free money just by inviting people. So that really shouldn't count. But I'll be honest with you, when I told you I had everything in 30-year treasuries during COVID, and I didn't do good. The treasuries got killed, especially the long-term treasuries, um, and I don't even like treasuries, but that's how scared I was that there was going to be a global crisis. Um, And then this year, I basically this past year, I focused mainly on dividend investing, on monthly dividend investing to be more accurate. And most of the stocks, trusts, whatever, down 20 or 30%. Now, a while back when oil was very high, um, mainly I was invested in oil, mainly, and oil and gas, and all those oil and gas companies were up 20, 30%. And guess what I did? I sold them. And a lot of them ended up going higher, but I didn't care. I was ready to lock in a 20 or 20% profit. And get out. So now some of my other choices maybe haven't done as well, but like I said, I'm very confident in S&D going at some point in the future to 6 or 10 or 15, maybe even 20 in the next couple of years, and I think it had gone to 4.5 just this past year, within the last year. Um, so I'm confident that when you judge my return, you have to basically, for a good money manager, like I said, if you look at the history of the best money managers in the world, uh, you know, they're going to finish at the bottom percentile, probably at least 3 out of 5 years, maybe. So probably 3 out of 5 years, they're near the bottom. And this is the problem with money managers, because everyone wants to just do average. and it's probably even less than 7% because they charge you 2% off the top, and then take 20% of all the profit. And they have a lot of you in a bunch of risky stuff, like Tesla that was trading at when it was going up crazy, it was trading at 1,000 times earnings, which means it would take you 1,000 years or one Lord's Day to basically get your money back, and but people love just to do average. That way they don't get fired. They don't lose their job. But the people that would probably get fired, or if you had anyone that knew anything about investing, they would probably fire the guy that was at the bottom decile the last 4 out of 5 years. But what they don't realize is in that 5th year that I might get a 500% return, which brings my average over the 5 years to 100%, which means if someone gives me, say, $10,000, and I'm just using this as a hypothetical, I'm not promising anything. I just think, like I said, when I'm starting out, I want to start out with cash flow. As that cash flow starts to come in, then I want to start going for value, because undervalued securities some point in the future should, if it is legitimate business, if they haven't lied about their facts, should go up. But let's just say, for example, someone gives me $10,000 today, and then at the end of 5 years, they got 20,000. So let's say that would be what, a 20? Would that be 20%? But this is what people don't realize is the best money managers in the world are down here at the bottom. Because why is this? Why is this? It's because in order to get a above average return, you have to buy things that are cheap, that are on the bottom, right? And if it's ugly and it's at the bottom, it's going to take a while for people to catch on. It might take a news article. So, let's say you buy it here, and then this is year 1. Year 2, year 3, maybe year 4. So right here, I mean, you've either broke even or lost money. So it really ain't till year 5 that you see it go up here. So this is the reason why the money managers that are really good finish in the bottom decile probably 3 out of 5 years. But their returns in one of those years is going to outweigh all these subpar or negative years. Whereas you got a lazy money manager that just wants to buy the market. They're just going to buy the market, and they're going to keep their job because they were average. They didn't take any unnecessary risk, but they didn't beat the market. If you can't beat the market, you have no business being a money manager. I'm sorry. And they got a whole industry that basically sucks all the U.S.'s money away, sucks the average person's money away, rips them off, takes all their damn money, and doesn't even give them a decent return on their money. Anyway, this was a 2-hour video on a 5-minute question. Man. But yeah, if you want to know what my returns are for this past year, like I said, they were in the negative. The market was down 30%, and most of my dividend stocks were yielding closer to 15%, which is crazy high. So, if the market was down 30 and I was only down 15, to me that's pretty good. But I also took some some gains here and there. Like I said, when oil went up crazy, SJT, for example, I bought it at 7, it went to 15. I had sold some back then and took a little profit. But like I said, you can't. To me, you can't judge someone year to. You need to look at like a 5-year time span because, yeah, I might get rid of a cigar butt and just take a 20% gain and get out, but a truly great company or a company you have high hopes for, the future is not written yet, so maybe that small little company might grow into something crazy. I never in a million years would have thought DAC would have, even though I thought it was a 10 bagger, I thought it was going to take 5 years to happen. I would have never thought that it could go up 30x in like a year or less than a year. I just would have never thought that. And I had talked to one guy the other day. He's been in the stock market for 40 years, buying and selling, and I think he had bought 2 10 baggers in 40 years. So if I'm able to find 3 in maybe 5 years, or I must be doing a little bit something right. anyway, hopefully this helps somebody. And good luck, fellow investors, and just keep investing. And back when I was doing $700 a week investing, I would throw 500 at a company every week. Hey, I'm gonna put 500 on this company or 500 on that company, or whatever works for you in your budget. Maybe it's $5, maybe it's $50, maybe it's $25. Whatever works for you. But the key, I think, for the new investor that is just starting is to see those monthly dividend checks, to see those quarterly dividend checks, to see that steady cash flow increasing over time, where basically instead of you working for money, you are basically making your car do your work for you, and let your car use your interest and your assets to compound.